It was a quiet night in Mbale, Uganda, the kind of night where even the wind seemed to sleep. But suddenly, the silence broke. Flames lit up the sky from Mirembe's home. Neighbors rushed out, confused and scared. The house was burning fast, like it had been waiting to catch fire. Inside were Mirembe and her little daughter Zuri. By morning, both were declared dead. Only one person made it out, Mirembe's husband, Rai. He told police it was an accident. He said he tried to save them but the fire was too strong. People wanted to believe him. But some couldn't forget what they heard that night. There were screams, not just from inside, but outside too. Some swear they saw a second woman running away in the dark, covering her face, vanishing before anyone could stop her. The story didn't make sense. How did the fire start so quickly? Why were the doors locked from the outside? And why was Rai not hurt at all, not even a single burn? Whispers began to spread through the town like smoke. Something wasn't right. But there were no answers. Just ashes, silence, and secrets buried deep. The case was closed, and life went on. But the neighborhood never forgot. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows of that night, a story waited to return, one that would shake their lives again, years later, when the truth came walking through their door wearing a scar and a lullaby. Just a few weeks after the fire, before the ashes had even settled in people's hearts, another shock came. Rai, the grieving husband, stood smiling beside a new bride, Nafula. The same woman some neighbors whispered about seeing that terrible night. People could hardly believe it. Mirembe and little Zuri had just been buried, and now there was music, food, and laughter coming from Kasiri's house again. It wasn't just strange, it was cold. The funeral was quiet, rushed, almost like a chore. No long speeches. No real tears. But the wedding? That was loud. That was fast. That was full of smiles. And at the center of it, Rai looked happier than anyone had seen him in years. Nafula wore bright colors and laughed freely. To outsiders, it looked like a fresh start. But to those who knew the story, it felt like something darker, like a celebration on top of a grave. Rumors spread like wildfire through Mbale. People asked questions in hushed tones. Was this love or a cover-up? Was the fire really an accident? Why was Nafula always around even before Mirembe died? Some said Rai had loved Nafula for years. Others believed she had something to do with the fire. But no one could prove anything. And just like that, the couple disappeared. They packed up their things, left the house behind, and moved far away to Nairobi. A new city, a new life, and a clean slate, or so they thought. In Nairobi, Rai and Nafula lived like nothing had ever happened. They told people they were a loving couple starting fresh. No one knew their past. No one asked about Mirembe or Zuri. It was as if the fire had burned their history away. Rai got a new job, and Nafula started a small business. They were seen at fancy restaurants, parties, smiling in photos. But back in Mbale, the silence they left behind was loud. The house stood empty, blackened with smoke. The neighbors passed by it with a chill. And even though the couple tried to forget, they couldn't escape everything. Some nights, Nafula would wake up sweating, heart racing, hearing screams that weren't there. Sometimes, Rai would stare out the window too long, lost in thought, gripping the armrest like he was holding on to something that wanted to drag him under. They thought they had erased the past. But the past doesn't disappear. It waits. It watches. And 10 years later, it would come back, not with fire this time, but with a face. A face they never expected to see again. A face that carried the same eyes, the same scar, and a lullaby only one woman used to sing. The story wasn't over. It had just been sleeping. And soon, everything they had buried would rise. 10 years had passed since the fire. Rai and Nafula had built a new life in Nairobi, far away from the memories of Mbale. They thought the past was buried for good. But life has a strange way of opening old doors when you least expect it. One bright afternoon, a black car pulled up outside their home. From it stepped a tall young man with confident eyes, Jabari. He was Kasiri's son from a relationship long before Mirembe. They hadn't spoken in years. After the fire, Jabari had quietly moved to Cape Town to study and stay away from the family mess. Now, he had returned, and he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a young woman. Her name was Nia. She was calm, graceful, and spoke in a soft voice that made people stop and listen. She smiled politely, shook hands, and made eye contact like someone who carried old wisdom. But what caught Nafula's and Kasiri's attention wasn't just her poise, it was her eyes. Deep, familiar, haunting eyes. The kind you don't forget, even if you want to. And then there was the scar, a small, strange mark on her left shoulder. It peeked out from her dress like a silent whisper of something painful. Nafula couldn't stop staring. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Kasiri froze too. His face went pale for a moment before he forced a smile. Jabari, unaware of their discomfort, was clearly proud to show Nia off. He held her hand gently, introduced her with excitement. "This is Nia, the love of my life," he said with a grin. But in Kasiri's chest, something heavy began to rise. His eyes flicked back to that scar, back to her eyes. He had seen both before, but that was impossible. Wasn't it? Nafula made an excuse and quickly left the room. She couldn't breathe. Her hands shook as she gripped the bathroom sink. In her head, the past was playing like a movie she thought she had deleted. The fire. The screams. The little girl. Could this really be her? At dinner, Nia was polite. She laughed at jokes. She asked thoughtful questions. But something about her presence made the room feel colder, quieter. She watched Kasiri closely, but not in a way that was rude, more like someone searching for pieces of a puzzle. Jabari seemed happy, but Nafula and Kasiri couldn't eat. Every bite tasted like fear. That night, when the house was quiet again, Kasiri asked Nafula, "Did you see her scar?" She nodded slowly. Neither of them said anything after that. They just sat in the dark, their hearts racing. Nia had come with a smile, with grace, with calm. But behind those eyes was something else, something familiar. Something unfinished. And for the first time in 10 years, Kasiri knew deep down, the past had found them. From the moment Nia entered their house, something felt strange. Not just because she was Jabari's girlfriend, but because of how she looked, how she moved, how she smiled, it was all too familiar. Nafula couldn't stop watching her. Every time Nia laughed or tilted her head, Nafula's stomach turned. She looked pale, her hands cold. She sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, barely blinking. To anyone else, Nia was just a beautiful, kind young woman. But to Nafula, she looked like someone who should have been gone, someone who should have been dead. Kasiri noticed it too. He tried to hide his shock, but he kept staring. Every small thing about Nia reminded him of Mirembe. Her eyes, dark, deep, and full of something unspoken. Her voice, soft, yet somehow haunting. And most of all, her presence. It wasn't just similar. It was the same. It was like seeing a ghost walk into his house and sit at his dinner table. Nafula couldn't even eat. She kept her eyes down, afraid that if she looked too long, she'd see something she couldn't explain. Her mind flashed back to the fire. The screams. The smoke. The locked doors. And the child, Zuri, crying for her mother. That night, they were sure it was over. The house had burned. The truth had died with it. But now, here was Nia, with the same scar, the same eyes, the same air. How could it be? Nia, on the other hand, acted like nothing was wrong. She smiled at everyone. She helped set the table. She told stories about Cape Town, about how she met Jabari, about her love for books and music. She didn't show a single sign that she recognized Nafula or Kasiri. She didn't ask about Mbale or about the past. She just seemed happy to be there. But that only made it worse. Because for Nafula and Kasirai, it felt like standing in front of a ticking bomb, beautiful on the outside, silent on the inside, but full of something ready to explode. Later that night, when Nia went to bed, Kasirai pulled Nafula aside. His voice shook. "It's her," he whispered. "Tell me I'm wrong." Nafula couldn't answer. Her lips trembled. Her heart pounded so loud she couldn't think. She looked at him, eyes wide with fear, and finally said, "I don't know how, but it's her." The air felt heavy. The house no longer felt safe. The past they had buried was sitting just upstairs, alive and breathing. They didn't know what she knew. They didn't know if she remembered. But one thing was clear, she wasn't just a girl Jabari brought home. She was a mirror of everything they had tried to forget. And now, every step she took inside their home sent shivers down their spines. It was a quiet evening. The Nairobi sky was dark, the stars hiding behind heavy clouds. Inside the house, everything was calm. Jabari sat in the living room, reading a book. Nia was in the kitchen, washing a cup. Then softly, so softly he almost didn't notice, he heard her humming. It was a tune, slow, gentle, and sad. It wrapped around the room like a memory floating in the air. Jabari looked up. The melody made something inside him stop. He didn't know the song, but somehow, it felt important. He waited until she came back and asked casually, "That song you were humming, where's it from?" Nia looked confused, almost like she hadn't realized she was humming at all. She paused and said, "I don't know. I've always known it. I don't remember where I heard it first." Jabari tilted his head. "You sure? I've never heard it before." Nia smiled softly, but there was a shadow behind her eyes. It's always been in me. Since I was a child." Upstairs, Kasirai froze in the hallway. He had been walking past when he heard the tune too. And it wasn't just any tune. It was a lullaby, the one Mirembe used to sing to Zuri every night. A song no one else knew. A lullaby that died in the flames, or so he thought. Downstairs, Jabari kept pressing gently, "But who sang it to you? Your mom? A nanny? Someone at school?" Nia just shook her head, eyes distant now. "No one," she whispered. "I don't remember anyone singing it to me. It's just, always been there, like a dream I never wake up from." That night, Kasirai couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed, sweating. Nafula came in and asked what was wrong. "She hummed it," he said. "The lullaby. Mirembe's lullaby." Nafula's face went white. Her knees nearly gave out. "You're sure?" she whispered. Kasirai nodded slowly. "She didn't just look like her. She remembers things she shouldn't. Things no one else could know." In the guest room, Nia lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The melody was still in her head. She didn't understand why she knew it. But lately, strange images had been coming to her in dreams: fire, smoke, a woman screaming, a child crying. And always, the same soft voice singing that lullaby through the chaos. It made no sense, but her chest ached every time she woke up. Like something deep inside her was trying to speak. Something had been buried for years. Something broken. But now, piece by piece, it was rising. That simple song, a lullaby, had opened a door inside her. And behind it, something was waiting. A memory. A truth. A fire she had somehow survived. And it wasn't finished with her yet. The guest room was quiet one rainy afternoon when Nia decided to tidy up. While pulling out a box of old books from under the bed, her hand brushed against something flat and dusty. She pulled it out, an old photo album, its cover worn and faded. Curious, she sat on the bed and opened it. Most of the photos were in black and white or slightly faded colors. They showed smiling people, birthday cakes, old houses. But as she turned the pages, she reached one that stopped her breath. There, in the bottom corner of a page, was a half-burned photo. The edges were black and curled from fire damage. But the faces were still clear. A woman stood smiling, holding a little girl. And that little girl had the same soft eyes, the same curly hair, and the exact same scar on her shoulder that Nia had always wondered about. Under the picture was a name written in neat handwriting, Mirembe and Zuri. Nia stared at the photo, heart racing. Zuri? That was the name from her dreams. The name that sometimes echoed in her mind when she was half asleep. She got up, ran to the living room, and showed the album to Jabari. "Look at this," she said. "This little girl, she has my scar. She looks like me. And her name is Zuri." Jabari looked at the photo, then back at her. His smile faded. He laughed nervously and closed the album. "You're just imagining things," he said. "Lots of kids look alike. And scars? Coincidence." But Nia didn't believe him. Not anymore. That night, her dreams came back, but clearer. She saw the fire again. She smelled the smoke. She heard the screams. She was small, hiding in a corner, crying. A woman, her mother, was trying to reach her, but something was blocking the way. A locked door. Then came the sound of another voice, sharp, angry, female. And then, silence, then flames. She woke up with her pillow soaked in sweat. Her hands were shaking. She went to the mirror and stared at herself. That scar, it wasn't just an accident. It was a clue. A piece of a story that had been hidden inside her for years. But why didn't she remember before? Why now? The next day, she searched the guest room again. Behind an old drawer, she found a child's bracelet, gold, with the name Zuri carved into it. Her hands trembled as she held it. It fit her wrist perfectly. She wasn't imagining things. She was remembering them. The whispers in the walls weren't just dreams anymore. They were echoes of a past no one had told her about, a life she had once lived, a name she once had, and a fire she had once escaped. And now, the truth was no longer hiding. It was waking up inside her, one memory at a time. Nia couldn't sleep anymore. Her dreams were getting clearer, more painful. The fire, the screaming woman, the locked door, they weren't just dreams. They were memories. Her hands shook every time she looked at that burned photo of the little girl with her scar. And the bracelet that said Zuri, it fit her too perfectly. Deep in her heart, Nia knew something was wrong with the story she had always believed about her life. She had no memory of real parents, no photos of her as a baby. Everything she thought she knew felt fake. And there was only one way to be sure. One weekend, she told Jabari she wanted to visit Mbale, just to explore. He didn't think much of it. But Nia had a plan. She had tracked down an old nurse who used to work at the Mbale clinic. The moment they met, the nurse looked into Nia's eyes and went silent. She said, "You look just like her. Just like Mirembe." I never thought I'd see those eyes again. Nia's heart dropped. The nurse agreed to help her. And told her what she needed to do next. Back in Nairobi, Nia carefully took a hair from Kasiri's comb when no one was looking. She also took one from herself. With the nurse's help, she sent both samples for a private DNA test. Days passed. Nia waited, sick with anxiety, barely able to breathe. Then the results arrived. She opened the envelope slowly, her fingers trembling. The paper was simple. Just 2 names. One result. Match, parent and child. Her knees gave out. Kasirai wasn't just Jabari's father. He was her father too. And that meant Jabari was her half-brother. Her boyfriend was her brother. Her heart shattered into pieces. She sat alone in the room for hours, staring at the wall. The truth felt like poison in her mouth. Her whole life was a lie. She had almost fallen in love with her own blood. And worse, the man who caused her pain, who let her and her mother burn, was the same man who smiled at her every day like she was just a guest in his home. Now she knew why her memories were coming back. Now she knew why she had always felt out of place, why her heart always ached near Kasirai and Nafula. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a trap. They had erased her past and raised her memory like it never existed. But they couldn't erase the blood. And they couldn't silence the truth forever. Nia wiped her tears. She wasn't going to run. Not this time. She would let them see what they tried to kill. She would show them that the little girl in the fire was still alive. And she was done being silent. Nia had cried enough. The pain had changed into something stronger, a need for truth. A need for justice. She could no longer pretend. They had taken everything from her, her mother, her name, her childhood. And they thought they had won. But now, she was ready. She was no longer the lost girl with broken memories. She was the truth they tried to bury. And she was going to make them face it. She planned everything carefully. She called for a family dinner, nothing too fancy, just enough to make it feel normal. But this time, it wasn't just family she invited. She called a few trusted journalists, telling them there was a story that would shake everything. She asked the old nurse from Mbale to come too. The nurse agreed without hesitation. "It's time," she said. "The world should know." Nia dressed simply that evening. Her mother's bracelet on her wrist. Her hands calm, her heart steady. The dining table was set. Jabari smiled, thinking it was just a lovely family night. Kasirai sat proudly at the head of the table. Nafula poured herself a glass of wine, unaware it would be her last calm drink. Then, Nia stood. She thanked everyone for coming. And then she slowly placed the DNA test on the table. "Before we eat," she said, "I have something to share. This," she pointed to the envelope, "is proof that Kasirai is my father. Which means Jabari is my brother." Silence. Forks dropped. Jabari looked confused, shocked. Kasiri's face turned gray. Nafula dropped her glass, and it shattered on the floor. But Nia wasn't done. She reached into her bag and took out her phone. "And this," she said, "is the rest of the truth." She pressed play. A shaky recording filled the room. Nafula's voice, drunk, broken, filled with guilt. "We locked the door. I told him." She screamed so loud. Mirembe wouldn't stop crying. "We thought the fire would finish it all." Everyone froze. The nurse gasped. One of the journalists started recording. Jabari stood up, eyes wide in disbelief. You killed her?" he asked, his voice breaking. Nafula covered her face. Kasirai tried to speak, but no words came. The truth was too heavy. Nia looked at them all, not with hate, but with calm fire in her eyes. "You thought you burned us. But I lived. And now, you don't get to hide anymore." Tears streamed down Jabari's face. Nafula ran out of the room. Kasirai collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. Nia turned to the press. "Tell the world," she said. "This is the story of a girl they tried to erase. But I remembered. And I came back." And with that, the silence was gone. The truth had been spoken. And nothing would ever be the same. The news spread fast. What was meant to be a simple family dinner became the biggest scandal in Nairobi. The press didn't hold back. Headlines screamed about lies, fire, betrayal, and a daughter rising from ashes. Everyone wanted to know about Nia, the girl who came back from the dead to destroy the people who tried to erase her. But Nia didn't want revenge. She wanted truth. And she wanted it in front of everyone. So she picked the perfect day, Father's Day. She didn't call it a celebration. She called it a gathering of truth. The same reporters were there, this time with cameras. The nurse from Mbale came back. Neighbors, friends, and strangers filled the yard. Even the local TV station showed up. Jabari stood quietly at the back, pale and silent. Kasirai arrived looking tired, nervous, holding on to what little dignity he had left. Nafula didn't want to come. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, dragged her there. Then Nia stood up. No podium. No microphone. Just her voice. Clear, strong, and calm. She looked around and then straight at Kasirai. Today is Father's Day, she said. But a real father doesn't lock his child in a burning house. A real father doesn't let her mother die screaming. You didn't kill me that night, you created your own punishment. And now, it's here. The crowd was silent. Some gasped. Some wiped their eyes. Nafula stood frozen, her face pale. Then she turned and ran through the gate, covering her face from the cameras. She was gone. Kasirai dropped to his knees. His hands shook. Tears ran down his cheeks. He kept whispering, I didn't know. I didn't know she lived, but no one believed that. The nurse shook her head and turned away. The truth was too loud now. Jabari looked broken. He walked up slowly to Nia, eyes full of sorrow. You're my sister, he whispered, voice cracking. All this time. I loved you. And now I don't even know who I am. Nia took his hand gently. You didn't know. But now you do. And we move forward with truth. Reporters surrounded her, asking questions, taking photos, trying to get more. But Nia didn't care about fame or attention. Her eyes were on Kasirai, still on the ground, now surrounded by the very shame he tried to escape. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She simply turned to leave, saying one last thing, softly, this was never about revenge. It was about remembrance. And now, the world remembers. The cameras clicked. The crowd murmured. But Nia walked away slowly, with calm strength. Her truth had burned brighter than their lies. Father's Day had become his judgment day. And justice, finally, had a name. The sun was setting as Nia stood at the gate of the mansion. The same house where so many lies were told. The same place where she had once laughed, cried, and even fallen in love, only to discover it was all built on pain. In her hand, she held something simple, yet powerful, her mother Mirembe's bracelet. It was old, a little worn, but full of memories. It was the only thing that truly felt like home. She didn't look back. There was nothing left for her in that house anymore. Kasirai was inside, broken and silent, drowning in the truth he tried to bury. Nafula had vanished into shame. And Jabari, her brother, not her lover, stood at a distance, watching her go with eyes full of sadness and regret. But Nia walked away with peace in her heart. She had no anger left. No revenge. She had done what no one thought possible, she brought truth into the light. The world now knew her story. The girl from the fire had lived. The lies had burned away, and only truth remained. The ghosts of the past, the guilt, the pain, the silence, now haunted the ones who created them. Not her. She was free. As she stepped onto the road, the wind brushed past her skin, and the bracelet on her wrist shimmered in the light. She smiled softly. This was not the end. It was a beginning, one she had written for herself. And with every step forward, Mirembe's memory walked with her.